Your wealth deserves stability, expertise, security. Your wealth deserves LGT Cresto, private wealth with over a century of global heritage.
And welcome to the Global View on this Tuesday. Let's get across what's going on at the macro level. Global factory activity slumped last month on sluggish demand in both China and Europe. Across the Eurozone, manufacturing contracted faster than initially thought as persistent policy tightening by the European Central Bank squeezed finances. And in Britain, the pace of decline steepened as optimism has faded. In the US, manufacturing weakened further also in June, plummeting levels last seen at the height of the COVID pandemic. The ISM's manufacturing PMI dropping to 46, the eighth straight month that the PMI has stayed below 50 threshold, which indicates contraction in manufacturing, the longest negative stretch since the Great Recession. And shrinking activity has led to factory layoffs, while price pressures at the factory rate continue to deflate. Meanwhile, the US housing sector continues to show signs of resilience, with residential construction rebounding 2.2% in May, having fallen in the previous month. And the closely watched spread between the 2 and 10-year US Treasury note yields has seen the deepest inversion since 1981. Historically, the yield curve has inverted 6 to 24 months before each recession since 1955. The 2-year yield has risen to 4.9% and the 10-year at 3.8%. Now, let's look at one of those elusive returns, the 100 bagger. There's stocks that return $100 for every $1 invested. Andrew Brown from E72 joining us now to give his 100 bagger pick. That's a bold, bold investment.
Yeah.
All right, let's.
I notice you.
Sorry, Andrew. Let's get into it. Okay, tell us then the 100 bagger. I mean, this would come along, maybe once or twice if you're lucky as an investor over your life.
Absolutely. A lot of people in Australia may have got a 100 bagger. They got Magellan if you bought it at 35 cents in March of 2009, and it actually more than 200 bagged. This one is 100 bagged fairly recently. It was listed in November 1992, and it is a brilliant entree, by the way, to your next program, Succession. That's exactly what's going on in this company right now. The company is listed in France. It's called Compagnie de L'Odet, ODET, which is the river in Brittany. And it's the controlling vehicle of the French billionaire Vincent Bolloré. Now, he retired from all these other companies about a year ago. He was 70, he's now 71, and all his kids are basically installed as the CEOs or managing directors or chairs of the companies that he controls. Now, why have you probably never heard of it? Well, it's a really, really complex company because it owns 69% of Vincent Bolloré's operating company, which is just called Bolloré. But Bolloré's subsidiaries actually own 36% of Compagnie de L'Odet. So it's like a cross-shareholding, a bit like Sol, Pats and Brickworks in Australia. And to make it even more complicated, Compagnie de L'Odet is 55% owned by a company called Sofibol. It's 50% owned by another company called Financière 5. It's 50% owned by Omnium Bolloré, and it's 50% owned by Bolloré Participation.
Oh, goodness.
And then Bolloré itself owns 50% of each of those companies going up to the top. So it's an amazingly complex structure. Just Google it if you want. It does mean obviously no chance of a takeover or anything else. So let's make that clear.
Given how complex that is, absolutely. Let's go back to the beginning then, in terms of Compagnie de L'Odet. What does it actually do?
Nothing. It just holds 69% of Bolloré, and it owns some shares as well in Vivande, which is further down. But the trick to it, Andrew, is because of the complexity of the shareholding, there's only about 480,000 shares available to the public, but at sort of 1,555 euros each, that's 750 million euros or 1250 million Aussie market cap to the public. But through Bolloré, more importantly, it has 100% interest in businesses in energy distribution, in batteries, and things like that. We think that those businesses are worth about €1.5 billion. But more importantly, it owns 18% of Universal Music Group directly. Now, you might remember the last time I came on here, we spoke about that. They, of course, are the guys who have all the rights to the recorded material of one Taylor Swift. It owns 28% of Vivande, which I'll come back to. That's €2.5 billion. And it's got €6.3 billion of cash once a major asset sale, which is its logistics business, finalises in 2024. And that's a business that's taken 37 years to build. And it sold the African part of that last year for €5.6 billion. So it's got an absolute truckload of cash in Bolloré. Bolloré trades at about €5.72, and we think it's worth about $13. And the reason why people don't get it is because they don't eliminate the cross shareholdings between Compagnie de L'Odet and Bolloré properly. So Bolloré's got less than half the realistic shares that it actually has on issue. In addition to that, the Vivande stake it has, Vivande is dirt cheap. Vivande trades at less than 1 times EV/EBITDA for its media and advertising businesses, which are Canal Plus on media and Havas in advertising. That's the world's largest advertising agency. It also controls a company called Lagardère. If you ever paid way over the odds in those airport stores, these guys own Relay. And they also own Hachette, which is a book publisher. And you might realise the book publishing world's being tipped upside down at the moment with the sale of Simon & Schuster. So we look at that, and Vivande we think is worth $10 plus versus a current sort of €8.50 share price. So there's just sort of value discounts all over this thing.
Yeah, but I guess the problem here, though, Andrew, as you've explained, is the complexity of it, and therefore a lot of investors would simply think this is too hard and ignore it. But is that the opportunity?
Well, that is the opportunity, Andrew, because what's going on is that with Vincent Bolloré being 71 years old, he's starting to put the finishing touches to his life's work. And effectively what we think is going to happen is the group is going to start rolling up. And O'Day is the company that is closest to him and his heart. And it's been interesting. He's been buying Compagnie de L'Odet shares very, very recently indeed, quite aggressively as well. And we think O'Day's worth probably over €3,800 a share, which is well over twice the current share price. And all those discounts, if you think about it, if you have a complex structure that you start to roll up, then the discounts start to go away as well. So we think it's an opportunity. We own shares in O'Day, Bolloré and Vivande. And our latest quarterly report for the 72 Dynasty Trust, which will come out later today, actually covers off this company in great detail. So if you're a bit confused, pull that down later on this afternoon and it'll all be explained.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you've managed to unpack some of that for us, Andrew. Hey, thanks so much for joining us from East 72.
Thanks indeed. Cheers, Andrew.
All right, so just before we go, let's check where we're likely to get going. As you can see, let's call it flat. It's really hasn't expressed its opinion either way, has it? That's, of course, ahead of the key RBA rates decision later today. And speaking of which, of course, we will have all coverage of that. 2:30 Eastern, the decision live as it happens, plus instant reaction from our experts, Patrick Idgwell from Ebury, David Bassanese from Beta Shares will be live with their analysis. That's from 2:30 Eastern here on ausbiz. That is it for the Global View. Stay with us. The Open is just around the corner.